When I regained consciousness, I was lying on the damp wooden floor of an abandoned ferry terminal, while distant emergency sirens echoed across the harbor and rain drummed against the cracked skylights above me. Every breath felt heavier than the last. My vision blurred around the edges, and I struggled to understand why strangers were calling my name, as though I had suddenly become the center of a tragedy no one had expected to witness. My name is Nora Bennett. I am 32 years old, and I restore historic buildings that most people believe are beyond saving, because I have always believed broken things deserve another chance instead of being discarded. The satisfaction of bringing forgotten places back to life taught me patience, discipline, and independence, long before I realized those same qualities would one day help me survive the greatest betrayal of my life. My grandfather Arthur inspired my career by taking me through abandoned churches, weathered libraries, and aging train stations, where he explained that strong foundations mattered more than beautiful appearances, because true strength was hidden beneath the surface. Before he passed away, he left me ownership of a neglected lighthouse on a secluded stretch of coastline, telling me that if I restored it with honesty and determination, it would become a symbol of every challenge I had overcome. Most people laughed when they saw the lighthouse because the roof leaked, the walls leaned slightly toward the sea, and years of storms had stripped away nearly everything that made it recognizable. I ignored every criticism, worked overtime for years to finance the restoration, and slowly transformed the forgotten structure into a peaceful waterfront home that reflected every sacrifice I had willingly made. My parents never admired my accomplishments because their attention revolved almost entirely around my younger brother Evan, whose endless business ideas rarely lasted longer than a season before collapsing under poor decisions and reckless spending. Whenever he failed, they expected everyone else to rescue him, while my quiet reliability made them assume I would always absorb whatever burden the family placed upon my shoulders. When my parents announced a lavish anniversary celebration at a historic hotel overlooking the bay, relatives from every corner of the country eagerly accepted the invitation because they believed the event would reunite everyone after years of distance. I attended hoping that perhaps time had softened old habits, although a quiet voice inside me warned that gatherings in my family usually ended with hidden expectations rather than genuine affection. The ballroom shimmered beneath enormous crystal chandeliers. Elegant musicians performed softly in the background, and polished speeches filled the room with compliments that sounded rehearsed instead of heartfelt. Despite the celebrations surrounding me, I noticed that no one asked about my restoration projects, my home, or the years of work that had quietly shaped the life I had built. My parents eventually approached my table wearing pleasant smiles that disappeared the moment nearby guests turned away, and my mother gently suggested we speak somewhere more private before dessert was served. My father folded his hands calmly and explained that Evan had recently discovered an incredible investment opportunity that required substantial collateral, adding that my lighthouse property could provide the perfect solution for everyone's future. I asked what would happen if the investment failed, but neither of them answered directly because they were already convinced the outcome would somehow favor the family, regardless of the risk placed upon me. My mother insisted that I had no spouse or children to worry about, while Evan supposedly needed the property more than I ever could, making it painfully clear that my years of sacrifice meant nothing in their calculation. I remained perfectly calm as I looked each of them in the eye and explained that the lighthouse represented my grandfather's final gift and countless years of determined effort, so transferring ownership would never be an option under any circumstance. My father stared at me in disbelief before quietly accusing me of placing bricks and timber above family loyalty, while my mother pleaded that refusing would embarrass everyone attending the celebration. Nearby conversations gradually faded as guests sensed the growing tension, yet I refused to raise my voice because I knew the truth did not require shouting to remain powerful. I gathered my coat, thanked them for inviting me, and said I hoped the evening could continue peacefully, even though I would no longer participate in a discussion built entirely upon pressure instead of respect. I had barely crossed half the ballroom when I heard hurried footsteps racing behind me, followed by the unmistakable scrape of something heavy being dragged across the polished floor. Before I could fully turn around, a decorative iron sculpture struck the side of my head with overwhelming force, sending me crashing into a display of antique furniture as darkness swallowed everything around me. Panic erupted instantly as guests screamed, servers rushed for help, and shattered glass scattered across the marble floor, while people struggled to understand how an elegant family celebration had transformed into complete chaos within seconds. My father stood motionless with trembling hands, his face frozen between anger and disbelief, as the consequences of his own actions unfolded before everyone present. A woman named Olivia, who managed the historic hotel and had witnessed the entire confrontation from only a few steps away, immediately placed herself between me and my father to prevent any further violence. She ordered security to detain him until police arrived, speaking with remarkable authority that left no room for argument, while reassuring me that medical help was already on its way. During the ambulance ride, paramedics repeatedly asked simple questions to measure my awareness, and every answer reminded me that acknowledging the truth out loud made the situation feel painfully real instead of distant or imaginary. Although my head throbbed relentlessly, I clearly stated that I had been attacked after refusing to surrender my property because I refused to protect someone else's reputation with silence. Doctors diagnosed a severe concussion along with several deep lacerations that required immediate treatment. Yet they assured me that I had been fortunate the injury had not caused permanent damage, despite the frightening amount of blood I had lost. As exhaustion settled over me, I realized the emotional wound created by betrayal hurt far more deeply than any stitches the surgeons carefully placed. The following morning, Olivia visited my hospital room carrying documents that investigators had already begun collecting because surveillance cameras throughout the hotel had captured every significant moment leading to the assault. She quietly explained that my father had been speaking with several relatives about obtaining my property weeks before the celebration, revealing that the confrontation had been carefully anticipated rather than impulsively imagined. Additional financial records soon revealed that Evan's supposed investment opportunity never truly existed, because he had accumulated enormous gambling debts that threatened to bankrupt him within months if creditors were not paid immediately. My parents had secretly believed transferring my lighthouse into his name would allow them to refinance the property, erase the debt, and leave me with nothing except promises that could never realistically be honored. Detectives interviewed dozens of witnesses whose independent accounts matched the surveillance footage almost perfectly, creating an undeniable timeline that exposed every attempt to pressure me before the attack occurred. Several relatives admitted they had privately questioned the fairness of my parents' demands, but had remained silent because they feared becoming the next target of blame inside a family accustomed to controlling uncomfortable conversations. The criminal proceedings moved forward steadily as prosecutors presented medical evidence, financial documents, eyewitness testimony, and security recordings that demonstrated both motive and deliberate violence, without relying upon exaggerated emotion. Throughout the hearings, I answered every question honestly and calmly because I wanted justice to rest upon facts instead of anger, knowing truth possessed enough strength on its own. The judge delivered a thoughtful decision emphasizing that family relationships never eliminate personal rights, personal safety, or legal accountability, regardless of tradition or expectation. Hearing those words lifted a burden I had unknowingly carried for years, because someone in authority had finally confirmed that love can never be measured by sacrifice demanded through fear. After the case concluded, my parents' carefully maintained reputation dissolved as neighbors, colleagues, and longtime acquaintances gradually recognized how many years they had manipulated appearances while ignoring genuine responsibility. Evan eventually accepted professional treatment for his addiction after realizing that excuses could no longer shield him from the consequences created by his own choices. I returned to the lighthouse with renewed purpose, repairing storm damage that had accumulated during my recovery, while watching each completed project restore not only the building, but also my confidence in the future. Friends and volunteers occasionally joined me, filling the once isolated property with laughter, meaningful conversations, and the comforting reminder that chosen family can sometimes become stronger than the family into which we are born. Standing atop the lighthouse balcony one peaceful evening, I realized that the greatest victory was never the courtroom decision or the public exposure of painful truths, but the quiet freedom to live without constant fear of manipulation. My journey taught me that protecting your dignity may temporarily cost relationships, yet it ultimately creates space for healthier connections built upon honesty, respect, and mutual care. I looked gratitude because every difficult step had led me toward a life defined not by someone else's expectations, but by my own courage to choose hope over fear. Please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family. We create entertaining and inspiring stories for our viewers, and your support helps us continue making great content for you.